Hello, everyone. Hope you're doing well today. I am Elizabeth Corey, and I'm the founder of BeatingTrauma.com. Thank you all so much for being here and for joining me on this discussion. It is Tuesday, noon Eastern time, and I try to be here every Tuesday, noon Eastern time. Sometimes I succeed, sometimes I don't, but I work at it. So thank you all for coming today and being a part of this discussion. I'm so glad you guys can be here today. So today, I want to talk a little bit about this notion that we can't make it on our own. This seems like right now within my own life and also within the life of some of my clients and whatnot, I'm seeing a lot of pressure around this concept. And so I want to spend a few minutes on this. I will say that today in particular, I'm going to be talking a little bit more to women, but some of this, especially when I talk about the family part of this, it applies to everyone. Some of it is a bit more specific to women and sort of some of the messages that we hear. On a societal level, when we talk about big systems, macro level systems, we have a tendency to hear this message, we can't make it on our own, not just from our families, but also from a whole lot of other angles and sources, so to speak. So I am going to speak a lot more to women today. A lot of times my discussions are very sort of non-gender specific at all, but today it's going to be a little more focused on women and what we hear as we go through our journey, both in recovering from trauma, but also in just living in this world the way it is today. It's still traumatic, actually, living in this world, and in and of itself is a traumatic experience for human beings. Don't get me wrong. You will hear me talk about the fact that trauma is everywhere, quite literally. But of course, when we have families who are abusive, all of this just gets exacerbated to another level, right? So this feels very timely right now for us. And I'm going to talk more about why that is in a minute. Well, I'm actually probably going to talk about why that is several times in a minute. But it does feel that way to me, that intuitively we're going through some pretty big changes at a very macro societal level. And this is one of them. This is coming up because of that. Because what I find is that when we are making changes in the way we operate as a society, one of the first things and one of the most blatant things and one of the most difficult things that happens is that which opposes it comes up very strongly. And by the way, this happens whether or not we are internally changing or on a much bigger systemic level changing, right? And so I feel like there's a lot of things going on right now in the world that are trying to push us back into a place of believing we can't make it on our own, while we're kind of out there going, maybe we can. And we're hearing a lot of stuff coming at us saying no. And don't get me wrong, it's not blatant. It's not like people are standing there. Well, I mean, sometimes it is. I was going to say, it's not like people are standing there saying, get back into your roles, but actually, sometimes they are. But it's more about the fact that things are happening around us, things you can't really attribute to particular individuals, just sort of systemic things that have been there a very long time. But suddenly we're kind of seeing them a little more blatantly because we're waking up, we're healing ourselves, and we're seeing things differently. And so these things are becoming more obvious to us. It's certainly, maybe I'm just speaking for myself, but I don't think I am. I'm noticing them in big ways that I've never noticed them before. So today we're going to talk about this topic of whether or not we can make it on our own. And I'm going to speak of 3 major sources for why we may be believing that we can't. And then I'm going to talk about what parts in our system might be involved in keeping us in a place where we believe that, at least a little bit, even though we're waking up and starting to go, I don't know about that. There are parts that what I will say are still singing that song. They're singing that song. And so we want to talk about that. So the first thing I'll start with is one of my favorite topics, because if you don't know very much about me, I will tell you that I am a single mother. I have 2 16-year-old kids. They are twins, yes. And I have been largely single for the last 14 years, other than a few dates here and there. So what I have learned as a single person is that society loves a couple. They just love a couple. Everybody loves a couple, right? So I'm going to start with sort of this societal pressure. And this is more along the lines of socially speaking here, is that we like to have that couple. And of course, society does love couples that look like a man and a woman, right? And don't get me wrong, there's lots of new forms of couples coming out there, and I'm all for it. But society loves a specific type of couple, and there's a reason for that. Okay, this is the part where I'm really speaking to you women. We love to put women in supporting roles. Okay, we love that. That's one of our favorite things to do as a society. Women need to be in their supporting role. And that does a few different things for society, but also to us. Okay, so I'm going to talk about both. Okay, the first one is it makes the woman lose herself. When a woman is in a supporting role, which, let's face it, she didn't just lose herself. Okay, we've been losing ourselves since we were born. We came into the world knowing who we were, and then we lost ourselves pretty much right from the beginning, okay? But this keeps us in that place. This keeps us losing ourselves, right? Okay? It continues the pattern of keeping us in a place where we lose ourselves, okay? So this is really important. So when we're in a supporting role, we lose ourselves. What that does is that keeps us in a place of disempowerment, okay? But it also keeps us from knowing who we really are and what we really want. And the truth is, a lot of women who've discovered who they are and what they really want are kind of doing things that change the world. And those things really scare the people who are currently in power. And by that, I mean sort of these highly masculine systems that have evolved around us, not evolved, need to evolve, have been built around. When we have a significant number of women who find themselves and know what they want and start moving in that direction, society changes. And that's really scary. Change is scary. And particularly when we look at this on an internal level, we're talking about the controller part who's like, I don't want to change. Okay. Society is a macro controller. I don't want to change. Women who find themselves and figure out what they want and are doing what they love are going to change things. That's just the bottom line. But if they keep us in that supporting role, we never really figure that out. So this is what I'm here to say as somebody who now is quite experienced at being single. This is one of the most powerful ways that we can get back to who we are, okay? No, I am not suggesting you have to live an isolated life or you need to be all alone for the rest of your life. But I am saying that when we have been trained as children, even brainwashed, to only think of others, it is very hard for us to figure out who we are and what we're doing here if others are significantly involved in our lives. Now, this is a temporary phase. Now, you might think, Elizabeth, 14 years is not temporary. But at this point, it is a bit more of a decision on my part that's very conscious because I have seen the benefits to myself. It is not necessarily something where I'm out there just begging for company and not getting it. It's more that, you know what? I'm kind of enjoying myself at the moment. And I'm kind of enjoying where my journey is taking me. And I think I'm going to stay here for a while, right? That's where I am right now. Doesn't mean that's where I'll be forever. But there is some time needed for us, especially as women, to figure out what we want. And that's so important, and I highly recommend it. Now, we will have a lot of inner parts in there going, no, but it's true. So what I've talked about so far is society putting women in the supporting role by loving that couple. We love that couple. We want everybody in that couple. Why are you not in a couple? What's wrong with you? Is something wrong with you? Why are you not in a couple? Right? We do that so the woman's in a supporting role. But what that also does is that makes her really angry. Okay? Now, the parts that agree with society are not angry. Those are going to be the controller, the love seeker, the karma kid. They're not the angry parts. The angry parts are the ones that want to be authentic, that want to embrace who you are, your goals, what you want in this world. Those parts get angrier and angrier and angrier when we are in the supporting role. And then what happens? Society says, I don't know what's wrong with you women. I don't know why you're so angry. Right? How many of us have heard this? Of course we're angry. We're not living for ourselves. We're not even able to consider what self even is or means, right? So yeah, we're angry. And then unfortunately, if we're raising kids, we're probably doing that a little bit more from an angry place than we want to. Because guess what? Kids ask a lot of us too. Now, it's not their fault. The adults in our lives who have basically erased us, it is their fault. The kids, it's not their fault. This is what they do. But unfortunately, if we're angry because of the adults, the anger has a tendency to come out at the kids. We need to spend some time figuring out who we are and what we want so that we can live a less angry life and enjoy ourselves more, right? So the first thing I want to tell you is the reason we hear we can't make it on our own is because society loves a couple. Because when we're a couple, we're in our supporting role, right? So drop that from your vocabulary. You do not have to be in a relationship to be a whole person, okay? No matter how many movies you see that say otherwise, you don't, all right? As a matter of fact, it is becoming a whole person that you have a much better chance of having an actual relationship that is useful and helpful and fulfilling to you. So that's the first thing. The next way in which we hear, and this one may be obvious to you already because you're here listening to me talk about trauma, and you know that I come at trauma from a perspective of family-based trauma, complex trauma that started very young. So my next example is the family is going to tell you that you can't make it on your own. And they're also going to tell you that you need their protection. And the reason they do this is because they need to keep you on their side. Okay. If somebody is abusive to you, they need to tell you you can't make it without them. And they need to tell you that they are actually your protector. Both of these things are lies. Okay, but it gets stuck in those parts that agree with it. The karma kid, the love seeker, the controller, those are going to be your parts that tell you that's true. And that is where we can have trouble with kind of moving away from that family who is still operating in the world from a standpoint of needing you to stay allegiant to them, right? You need to be towing that line because you need the family, right? So this is what we're talking about here, okay? Now this one may have, as I said, been a bit more obvious to you when we started because you've already been working on setting yourself free from those family lies, and this is going to be a big one. It really is. So, and JM is saying, single for 5 years and loving it. I'm glad to hear it. So much change can happen in us. So much empowerment can happen in us when we spend some time on our own, truly. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the family one because to you, you're probably going, yep, I've heard that. So we're going to move to the next one, which is still sort of society-based, but it's going to have more of a financial systems angle to it, okay? Because let's face it, money is freedom, okay? Now, we may have also been taught that money was power and control, or money allowed for abuse, or I can go on and on about all the things that money can stand for in our lives. But when you get to the most grounded form of money, you know, when people say, I want to be a millionaire, they're not saying that because they want to be selfish. They're not saying that because they want to sit around and eat bonbons all day. They're saying that because they want freedom. And we all know that money is tied to freedom. Having money is freedom. Freedom to do what we want, act how we want within reason. There's still laws, maybe. Depends how much money you have, right? But it's less about that. And it's more about just, I want to wake up in the morning and not have all of my thoughts consumed by how I'm going to pay my bills so that I can look at who I am, figure out what I want in life, create new things, become a generally better person. If we're constantly facing financial struggle, that's where our energy is going to go, okay? And the powers that be absolutely know this, okay? I want to be very clear about that financial struggle is meant to keep everybody in their place, okay? And that's why it's so hard. And that's why when it starts to get less hard, all of a sudden things shift and it gets hard again. And we're like, hey, what happened? It's because of this messaging. It's because of this way in which the financial systems are set up. And we're seeing a lot of this right now when we try to move away from financial control. And so what I mean by financial control is either a financially controlling or particularly well-off spouse while we don't have very much money. That is financial control, or working in a company that may be really abusive in their practices, but we don't feel like we can leave because that's where our money is coming from, or just in general, not working within a financial system at all. So, for example, working for yourself the way that I currently do, I can speak to this in that way. What we will often find is that it's really hard to break away from that financial control. And it's meant to be. It's meant to be. And so one of the ways in which we may be telling ourselves we can't make it on our own is looking at the fact that guess what's really hard to do nowadays? Live on a single income, right? Especially right now, it's even harder. Guess what else is really hard to do? Work for yourself, right? There's a tremendous number of extra fees and expenses and taxes associated with working for yourself. Also less benefits like insurance and things like that and working for yourself. Now, I am speaking about the United States of America when I'm speaking right now, and I know that many of you are not from here and you may find it easier to work for yourself, but in all the people I've ever talked to, and I talk to people from all over the world, I've never heard somebody say that working for self didn't require a lot of jumping through hoops financially and otherwise. It is quite challenging to do it. Right? A lot of us are feeling a lot of pain right now, in particular when there are layoffs at corporations. It does tend to be, guess what jobs go first? The ones that have been given to women in particular. Those have a tendency to go first. As I said, working for self comes with a lot of challenges. So when we start talking about being able to be on our own and making it in the world, and for many of us, if we have separated from family, we're doing this with zero safety net, maybe zero savings. Maybe we're struggling paycheck to paycheck right now, especially now when inflation, which by the way is totally on purpose, comes in and makes us struggle. Okay, this is all a part of the plan, right? And I am not speaking on a conspiracy level. This is very, very clear, okay, that financially it is very difficult to live on your own and without somebody controlling some aspect of your financial life. Okay, so we're getting this message all over the place right now that you can't make it on your own. And what that does is that puts us in the control of another person, organization, system of some sort. So I just want you to be aware of that, because when those kind of things come up, the next thing that happens internally is that we feel pressure from certain inner parts to push us towards getting support, whether that's financial support or just, I don't know, having them in the back pocket, like that safety net kind of concept, because we're scared, because all of this stuff is about fear, right? It's all about fear. And what's happening right now is a lot of people's fears are rising. Okay, we're starting to feel a pretty intense pressure, and it may push us towards, oh, maybe I just need to go back to my abusive family. Maybe I just need to find a partner. Maybe I just need to do things that I wouldn't do if I was feeling like I was okay on my own. Okay. Now, does this only show up for us on a financial level? No, there can be a lot of ways we feel like we can't make it on our own. All right. They can show up in many, many ways. Maybe we feel like maybe we're raising kids and we're trying to do it on our own and we can't manage the burdens of dealing with our kids. Or maybe we're trying to maintain a home and we feel like we can't do it all and it's not possible. And all of these different things can show up and they can trigger in us these parts. And these parts say, you need to go back to abusive people. You need to get the support from them. You can't do this on your own. You'll never make it on your own. And what happens is we hear it with every obstacle we face. When we hear the message, it just feels really true. It feels real. It's like, my gosh, yeah, I can't make it on my own. I really need to go back to those people. They know how to do this. They told me they'd protect me. They're going to help me out. I just need to go back to them and then I'll be safe. I'll be okay. I'll be able to make it through whatever this is, whatever obstacles are showing up right now. If I just have that support and that protection from those abusive people, right? Okay. This is the message internally that we want to be working with a lot. We want to write from the message that says back, go back and be protected and be safe financially by basically walking back into the lives of people that have very likely hurt us over and over and over again. Okay. So if you feel this message coming up in your system, if you've got a lot of fear right now, financially speaking, or otherwise, keep coming back to this. The pressure is going to go against what you are doing to live an independent life. Keep fighting it. Okay. Keep writing from it. And keep knowing that your grounded truth is that yes, you are an adult and you can make it on your own. It is possible, right? And so that, I know I'm on a bit of a soapbox today, but this is so important right now because I could even feel it pulling at me a little bit. Like, wouldn't that second income be really nice right now? I mean, the truth is it would, right? But it's so hard at the moment. Hang in there with this. Don't go finding another person who's going to tell you who you got to be because you're concerned about what's going on, about whether or not you can make it in the world on your own. You can make it in the world on your own. As a matter of fact, the best partners and the best people for us to bring into our space usually come because we have made it in the world on our own. Okay, truthfully, when we are in a needs-based relationship, it is going to be ungrounded in some way. Rebecca's saying, a big one I hear, you're sometimes alone on holidays while we're still getting together having fun. And then she says, I truly have more fun on my own. And I will tell you that a lot of people believe the holidays cannot be done in a really pleasant, fun way, like self-care kind of way if you're on your own. And I disagree with that. Now, I have never been fully alone on the holidays because I do have 2 kids, but I've also had to manage the holidays with 2 kids at varying ages because it's just been me and them since they were 2. That's not easy. But I will say that the best holidays I've had have been with just me and the 2 kids. And I've also done a lot of Friendsgivings over the years, and I love Friendsgivings. And if you're in a country that celebrates Thanksgiving, I highly recommend a Friendsgiving. They're the best. So and I will usually make something and I'll invite neighbors and people I know who don't have anywhere to go. And it's just an absolute blast. I love Friendsgivings. But yes, the best holidays I've had have been since I said no more to my family. Truly. Yeah, and Rebecca's saying, I'm 65 and never married. I hear such judgment about that and no kids, but I like it that way right now. Absolutely. I get it. There is a message out there that says, to women especially, if you don't have children, you're going to regret it. Well, most of the people I talk to that have chosen not to have kids do not regret it. I know that I have kids and sometimes I regret it, but only for the moment, only in those moments where I just feel completely stressed out and angry and that things aren't working and all the stuff. But I don't think that a woman's sole purpose revolves around their uterus. I think we're here for a lot more than that. And it may or may not be to have kids or to support a husband in our lives. And that's all right. That is all right. And I may be the only person you hear that from that speaks out there on the internet somewhere. I don't know. Maybe I'm not. But remember that the perspectives we're often given are about keeping us in that place of needing some kind of support or somebody else or some system in order to survive. And that's just not true. Was it true? Yeah. When we were a tribal people, it was true. It's just not anymore. It's not. Okay. I'm not saying live a lonely life, but I'm saying live a life on your terms, and the right people show up when you do that. Truly. So again, soapbox today, but I am feeling this subject right now so much. It's showing up for so many of my clients, showing up for me. I think it's just permeating the world at the moment. So you guys, as the phrase goes, you do you. No, I mean it deeply. Do you. Focus on you. Spend some time on just that. Really, do you. Enjoy it. Have fun with it. Process all the stuff that's under the surface that says, oh my God, it's not going to work. We're going to die, because it'll be there. That's your trifecta. Your karma kid, love seeker, controller. They're going to be there to say, don't do this. Right from it. Keep doing it, because it's the best thing you can do. It's rebellious. It is its own form of rebellion. So thank you all so much for being here today. I really enjoyed this discussion, even though it scares me a little bit to have it out there on the open interwebs, but it's important. right? It's important for us to have this discussion about independence, especially when it comes to families. Independence for all of us is going to be important. So, Trisha's saying this is also relevant to me. I am glad it's relevant to you today. I really wanted to speak to you guys about this and just really help you to see this side of things right now, because I think we're all a little inundated with doubts in general. So I will talk to you guys next Tuesday, noon Eastern time. Thank you all so much for being here and have a really good week. Bye.